It's 11 o'clock.
Wow, that was just right
How's
on.
that?
That was excellent.
So what you got there?
Well, you know, I was working on the chicken house today, right? I have a big I like
working on the chicken
everybody.
house.
I like the synergy of doing things that are multitasking or multi-purpose. And so my wife, we bought this really lovely, sort of expensive for my taste, bird feeder, and the bird's kind of like the clunky cheap ones, but this one looks nice. So I decided I'm going to move it. I'm going to hang it on the chicken coop. And when the birds, spill out stuff, the chickens will be happy.
The chickens will eat it.
It'll be happy for everybody. Of course, when I was putting it up, a board fell and knocked one of the solar lights off and crushed it to oblivion. All right, so I'll let that music fade away, and then I'll continue. so of course, I want to fix it before my son finds out that I just broke one of his 3M solar lights, and I'm going to Lowe's, and I found some lights that were good. But one of the things I also needed a new little tape measure.
So it's always nice to have a good tape measure.
And so I was impressed because this one almost glows in the dark. It's like it's a Comelot high visibility blade. When I said high visibility blade, I went, I could use that, man.
555 nanometer
look at that.
glow there going on.
Exactly. That's the first thing I wanted to point out to you.
That thing is glowing.
It's just like that safety that's so glowing. Now, the other thing was, anybody who has ever done projects, especially if you work by yourself, you're measuring stuff, right? So, you put out your thing, and then you have to push the little lock to hold it in place. And then when you finish, you have to, and the thing is, sometimes you're trying to hold something. I thought to myself, okay, this says self-lock. And I thought, well, what does this mean? What it means, Robert, is you pull it out and it locks.
All by itself?
By itself.
And you don't have to
and guess what? And then when you're finished, you push the button and it pulls it.
And then it comes.
So I only want to say that everybody who has done construction has been using the old, everybody has a little tape measure.
Yep.
Where you have to pull it out,
everywhere.
Then you have to push it down with your hand, and then
sometimes works and sometimes doesn't.
It does, and then you have to pull it back up somehow with it. And I thought somebody did what I think is wonderful in terms of innovation, and they took a basically simple problem. People talk about, I know even Frank Zappa fans say that, talk about necessity is the mother of invention, right? But I think annoyance is.
Annoyance is definitely
the thing that was always so annoying about my tape measures was I had to use like 4 or 5 different weird motions to accomplish the idea of extending it. And
that is such a nice tape measure.
Simple little.
You're going to have to check that doesn't actually stay here.
Don't let the kids see that.
Don't let the kids see it, yes.
Or Robert Strong. Good morning, Robert Strong.
Good morning, Richard Pollack.
Hey, listen, I'm excited about today's radio science news.
Obviously, you're almost as excited about your new tape measure.
Oh, I can't wait to go play with it.
I'm going to measure something.
I'm thinking somehow I can adapt this to a fishing reel. I'm thinking, let's not get too carried away.
Not sure. Okay. Hey, so you folks are tuning into Radio Science News. This is episode number 791 in a series, June 26th, 2021. We're in beautiful downtown Wheeling. Looking out on the window of science. It's a little wispy clouds, a little bit of haze.
It's going to get really hot.
But it's okay, and then it's going to get toasted. Really hey, anything that ends in a 1 could be a prime number, but the factors are 7 and 113.
Whoa!
So if you're into those primes,
bet those on your lottery card today, and then share the winnings.
Bet those on your lottery card. 7, 113, and 791.
Wow!
And I'll split all of the things that you don't get with you, 50-50.
Nice math on your part.
I love doing math. It's always fun. Hey, so we probably need to get to the launch pad of science. I've already tuned us into, there we go, to the Smart Center webpage. If you go to www.smartcenter.org, if you look down, you'll see a little trifecta rainbow of Radio Science News. If you click on the link just above that will take you to the launch pad of science that Richard lovingly puts up for our science.
Oh, and when you see that image, Radio Science News, Robert, I found.
Did you find the T-shirt?
Found the T-shirt. That's it was like folded up somewhere, so it's a little faded.
We need to put that in a frame somewhere so that it can be framed. Yes, so that would be pretty cool. Okay, so everything just popped up. Oh, and there's all kinds of neat links. Yeah. Oh, before I forget, this reminds me when I saw Ted Bratstrom in Hawaii just a couple
Yes.
months ago. He said, "Hey, that he has an update for his a weather page
Oh, good,
plus."
because it was not working, and
yes.
we
And
need to put it
so
back on the Smart Center page for sure.
I need to make a little note to myself.
Thank you.
Ted Bratstrom weather page plus. Okay.
Yeah,
I will
it's a-
send that off today.
It's a wonderful resource. I'm always
Oh,
like picking up my
it's
phone and looking
fantastic.
at these like
Yeah.
dark sky and things like that.
It's
They're limited.
so good. It's so good. Okay.
Nice.
All right. So we have here Surfside
Surfside sinking.
and sinking.
That's a separate one.
Sinking?
COVID variants.
COVID variants. Oh, the
Oh,
COVID
and
variants.
Robert, you're so excited to know that the report came out.
UAP report. The OOP.
Unidentified aerial
Phenomenon.
phenomenon.
Oh, last night on the History Channel, maybe it was the History Channel, I saw a 2-hour thing called Phenomenon.
Oh, yeah, I've watched. That is good.
Oh
That's
my
actually
gosh, it
very
was
good.
the best ever.
Well,
I have
better
seen
than this report, probably.
probably. I have seen over the years.
You and I have seen every one of these things.
every one of these
multiple
things,
times.
and you're like, okay, that's okay. But Phenomena last night was the best
Yeah.
reporting I've ever seen. It said everything. Everything was in this for 2 hours. I just stood there with my jaw dropped, going, "How could somebody do such a fantastic? It was so well done."
The nice thing they did, we won't spend too much time talking about it because it'll probably be better than the report that we're going to talk about soon.
Probably.
I remember seeing that first, and what I found amazing was what they had done is, we've watched so many of these things, and you see some cheesy, like blurry image. They went back and they found all of the original, like, footage. Like the one that where the 8 saucers are. I mean, they have all.
They had it all.
But it was either done with original footage or they digitally, made it. I mean, it looked really sharp, good images, and they had the actual people who said things in conjunction with the printed. It was all done in a very coherent.
It was so well done. I was just astounded.
Well, I will take your recommendation and agree that we could pass that along to people as they ponder this UAP report.
I think that is so well done. If there is a link to
we should find that,
online thing somewhere, I just want to say that after seeing that 2-hour thing.
Yeah.
I changed from, I don't know what's going on, to there is something so amazing going on here.
Yeah.
And it's been going on for 60, 70 years now, to the point that, guys, come on. I mean, they were showing one meeting after another,
With real testimony
with
of real people.
Right. Not just some guy going, and then after the 6th beer, I started to see this thing in the sky. No,
Well, yeah.
These were real people seeing real things, talking in a real, a logical manner, and every single one of them's going, I know what an airplane looks like. I fly airplanes. I do this for a job, and this was not an airplane.
The thing about this particular presentation was they used the real people. They used the real researchers.
I was just floored.
But the interviews,
It was so well done.
The interviews that you always sort of saw, like either shortened or paraphrased or whatever, they were actually from the people, like the pilots from the Japanese plane, all the classic UFO scenarios or things that have been discussed. They brought together the researchers and the actual witnesses.
Yeah.
And then because you and I have watched too many bad things. And if so,
really
then,
bad. And if so, I know.
But you had the actual people stepping forward to speak.
Yes.
So anyway, that's cool. We'll talk about that. Okay, so we have Dragon Man.
Dragon Man. I don't know about Dragon Man.
This is interesting. Why they decided to call this Dragon Man? This has to do with something really profound in anthropology. They've actually come up with basically another. There's Homo sapien, and there were other hominids that we feel like the Neanderthal we know, and maybe the Denisovans. Well, this is actually one that we think existed concurrently with the emergence of Homo sapiens and interacted with them, and actually is closer than Neanderthal. But all of a sudden, this information comes up, and like I said, I don't know why they. We'll get into it and why they decided to call it Dragon Man, because it sounds
I'm not sure
too
about
much
the
like a
Dragon Man.
superhero.
Yeah.
I have that one in the number 2 is just another thing about it. Exoplanets.
Exoplanets. Love those exoplanets.
Well, these exoplanets are cool because the point is these are exoplanets that could look at our solar system and recognize Earth as an exoplanet. So it's basically their positional geometry, scattered around the galaxy or nearby enough to be able to detect us,
Earth.
Which is, you go, well, wait a minute, I see you, do you see me? That's a scary thing.
And the answer is yes.
A follow-up, the quantum is a follow-up on the thing we talked about with the LIGO mirrors last week.
That was
a lot of
cool.
which still leaves me kind of like, I'm still trying to figure out. A cool thing, I called it Polarsaurus.
Polarsaurus.
Because it turns out that they're finding lots of evidence of dinosaurs that lived near the polar regions. Now, it's not, a lot of what we have talked about before is when you find, like they find dinosaurs in say, somewhere in Antarctica.
Right.
And they go, well, when they existed, it was a worm, but then, of course, continental drift.
Right.
They're actually talking about some dinosaurs that seem to be able to
live in Arctic areas.
In those cold temperatures.
Okay, that's interesting.
A great little butterfly that I was
Glass wings.
surprised to learn about, glass wings. A little concept about CRISPR and where that's going. And of course, Robert, one of your favorite little foods, Muco rice.
Muco rice.
This is another. Actually, this is
something about the phrase muco. Just
gets your Muco rice. Well, but the thing that is astonishing about this little story is you and I have been talking a lot about vaccine technology.
Yes.
This was another little epiphany for me in terms of vaccinations, because one of the things we profoundly learned and we're going to still wait till this all settles out, but we understand that the skin, the dermal application of a vaccine to a certain layer of the dermis is one of the most effective things.
One of the most effective.
Well, what I find out from reading this, and you'll find this fascinating, is that one of the other areas that's the most effective is the digestive system in certain parts of it, because that's the other place where stuff
the
comes
other
in.
skin, the inner skin,
Well,
essentially.
and when you think about why would nature design a system to produce immunities, certainly to things that you would either be like, scratched on the surface of your skin, but then also things that
On the
you
inside.
might ingest.
Yeah,
So
that
this
makes
is
perfect
cool.
sense. Okay.
Sting. Well, we got a bunch of. Actually, I feel bad that we didn't get to Hawking and
we didn't get
Betelgeuse
to
last.
Betelgeuse.
So before we sort of dive into the Surfside, the hotel collapse, is that there's a lot of stuff that I could see where we could talk for a long time.
We could talk for a long time.
But let's give our respect to Stephen Hawking, and
Let's do that.
We'll start there, and then we'll get back to the beginning. According to this, again, I always like it when Einstein and these people. The story is, well, they were right.
Over and over again.
Yeah, and especially when we're talking about a law. You and I like to obey the laws of science whenever
sometimes.
we can.
I'm
trying to defy gravity.
Best to try. It says gravitational waves confirm a black hole law predicted by Stephen Hawking. The area law says that a black hole's surface area cannot decrease over time. Okay,
Now you'll like
wait,
this because, well, before we get into it, you will also remember that in the presentation in the at Boston at the science, we
long
talked
ago.
about. There was a whole issue about the mass and the surface area that we talked about, and you completely understood and explained not only to me but the listeners of the. So there's a little bit of a relationship to there. Oh, it's a great picture of a
really interesting picture. Is gravitational waves from two merging black holes shown in a simulation spotted in 2015 reveal that the total surface area of the black holes doesn't decrease when they merge.
Now that's if part of that sounds counterintuitive to me.
It does sound counterintuitive, but when you look at the equation of a black hole,
right, as opposed to just a sphere, right?
The diameter of a black hole, when you add one black hole a unit length to another black hole unit length, it goes to 2 unit lengths. And the reason is that That's just the math of a black hole. When you take a black hole, a black hole volume
It's
is
11:15.
Thank you, Starbucks. Is not like a lump of a clay.
Yeah, or liquid
you
or
don't take
anything.
a piece of clay and another piece of clay and lump it together. It turns out that when you merge black holes, if you've got one black hole that's say 15 kilometers across and another black hole that's 15 kilometers across, the total after they merge and after you remove the energy that's going to be released as gravitational waves. If no gravitational waves are released, then it is the sum of that 15 plus 15. So that makes sense. So that's where the surface area. So it actually does not decrease; it increases. Because if you double the size of a sphere, the area goes up by the square of that.
Right.
So it goes up by 4. So it cannot get smaller. But he's saying, but the law says the black hole's surface area cannot decrease over time. Now, that's kind of an interesting thing because if there is a Hawking radiation, then the black hole is going to get smaller over time. Mm-hmm. So it has to get smaller over time. So the surface area of the black hole also over time has to get smaller. So
But, yeah, they further.
how are they doing this?
They're basically saying it, and they do that effect would allow black holes to shrink
Of
violently.
a lone black hole won't change.
But it says only over long periods of time. So they're basically they're reporting on the data that LIGO saw in terms of gravity. So in the short term merger,
Gotcha. Oh, gotcha.
that's basically
Yeah.
what they're saying.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it says the surface area of the newly formed black hole was greater than that of the two initial black. Well, it has to be. The math works.
Right.
Yeah. Upholding the area law with a 95% confidence level, the team reports. Okay. It's the first time that we can put a number on this.
Yeah. So
Very cool. The area theorem is a result of the general theory of relativity, which describes the physics of black holes and gravitational waves. Previous analysis of gravitational waves have agreed with predictions of general relativity and thus already hinted that the area law can't be wildly off. But the new study is a more explicit confirmation of the area law.
one more, and I love the last sentence because it says so. Physicists tend to be grumpy.
I tend to be grumpy.
The
Yeah.
enduring success of general relativity. But Farr says we're like, oh, it was right again. And that's what we sort of. I'm comforted when some of these things.
I am too. The reason that some of the physicists are a little bit on the grumpy side is that
They want to discover
they
something.
want to find something new. And if you just go, well, gee, this,
Einstein, right again.
this Einstein thing back from 1915 is still correct, and it's 2021, and I don't get to discover anything new. That tends to make some people a little grumpy.
Well, I like that idea a bit. Well, let's take a look at the Betelgeuse.
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 I keep hearing so many different pronunciations for this thing. I kind of like
I
Betelgeuse.
would like to know what a person who speaks the language that it was derived from. I would like to know how they would say it.
I would too.
And maybe they'll show up. It says dust and a cold spell on Betelgeuse. Of course, Beetlejuice was the way it was.
I
on
like
the
the
cartoons were Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice.
Don't say it 3 times. I like the idea of like a Z there. Betelgeuse. Like when you order, if you were at a restaurant and you were going to get prime rib, they'll say, "Do you want it au jus?" That French means with juice.
Betelgeuse. I would like it with Betelgeuse.
I said, I don't care. That'll be delicious. So there's a little image down here that
sure
shows
what they bring you.
So check out these images.
These
Before
images show
and during
Betelgeuse.
the great dimming. Wait a minute.
Great dimming
Was
as
that the
seen
last
by the
4
very
years?
large telescope. Hey, this
no political
this isn't political
The
science
great
news.
dimming.
The great dimming.
When were
I
you
am the
born?
great dimming.
When were you born? I was right in the middle of the great dimming.
Ignore that man behind the curtain.
So and I love the name of the VLT. The very like BLT. It's
I know.
VLT. Very
Very
large
large
telescope.
I know. Star grew darker over its southern hemisphere. By April 2020, it had returned to normal.
Yeah.
Like some big cloud was over it.
Yeah. You could even you get a sort of a look of that sort
If
of
you
passing.
sort of squint at it a little bit, yeah.
Because it's hard to tell from these images, which are, I say, whoa, they're fuzzy, but these are great images, really.
Of an actual star.
So the best, basically this story, just to put this to bed, is that the best interpretation we can get with the data we have, again, as he says, without flying our spaceship. Oh, there we go. That UAP
you
report.
have a spaceship?
UAP.
Wow, Oopa.
Basically, he's saying that part of it says the dimming wasn't spread uniformly across the surface.
Right.
A dark splotch was concentrated over the sun. So they've been able to discern something that gives them the sense that, they've split the astronomers into two camps. That sounds serious. One thought that it was a cloud of dust had blocked the light. Another thought there wasn't enough evidence of dust and the dimming was due to temporary cooling at the surface. Wow. I'm going to say maybe it was both,
It says the researchers then ran computer simulations of the star, which included incorporating how dynamic gas bubbles constantly churn beneath its surface to figure out the likeliest explanation for the way that the dimming played out. So, do they finally all...
Well, it's
agree now?
It's kind of left hanging. I see a sentence down there that says, this discussion will continue. Oh, well, yeah. We're not finished talking.
We're not finished
This discussion will continue
Astro Boys.
Here's the thing, until we obtain direct evidence for dust and failed to find sign or failed to find it. So this is good. They're saying we need more.
Dimming.
We need another grant.
We need more
definitive
grants.
And of course, the big news that maybe will give us some comfort is they say, well, so do you think this one's getting ready to go out with a bang? And they say, no, Dr. Montage says not today. Every day we are closer to an explosion, but I think it's not tomorrow or even in our lifetime. Well, guess what?
That's too bad because that would be awesome.
That would be spectacular. That would be like a UAP. Now, Robert, we spent a lot of time on that, but let's touch on that. I have two stories that I put up, and I'm just going to say that for anybody, and this is pretty much everybody who's following the collapse of the hotel or the condominium complex in Surfside, Florida. We're just right next to Miami, and very, very close to the beach, and very, very, very close to the water table, and very
cool.
A lot of issues. Let's just click on the first one because I think it just has a lot of definitive. The CNN story, what to know about the Surfside building collapse. Okay. And of course, this was done so immediately afterward. It's kind of like, what do we know now, or what are we finding out? And they actually updated it yesterday. So, and here's a picture that shows. Well,
I find it really interesting that just one portion of this collapsed.
Yeah, and it also gives you and I think so much about the Twin Towers or something where a failure somewhere like up, once a layer of the pancake, when they talk about, because you think about top. The structure of a lot of these buildings, and that's the interesting, there are so many other buildings that are like this, are based on the concept of having flat, very solid, rigid surfaces that are supported by columns. You've got the columnar strength and all that kind of stuff. But if something snaps, and that mass drops, as in the Twin Towers, they talked about how when there was a failure of like one floor, you wouldn't think that would be such a big deal. But that mass dropping, think of a typical floor being, in a big office building, maybe definitely bigger than 8 feet.
Surfside, this is just north of Miami Beach.
I don't know if yours going to play. It's a long story. So probably the best thing to do is let's just call everybody's attention to these stories. I know that there's more information coming out every hour. Like, even as I drove in this morning to do Radio Science News, Robert, they were speaking to someone who had a whole different take on stuff. Mine's, it wants to load the video, and I don't want it. It just wants to start it automatically.
I know.
Well, let's look at something. Built 1981, 12 stories, 160 feet tall. Wow, that's pretty. Okay.
That's a big building.
136 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. 1,200 to 2,023. There is a picture I think that shows it. Is that a before and after? Not exactly.
Not exactly. I'm not sure
weird.
what there's. Yes, yeah. I guess it is. Okay. There's a December 1st, 2020 and a June 24th.
Now, in case you were
2021.
considering buying a condo similar to this one, it says the price range is like $295,000 for a single bedroom, $980,000
for a 3-bedroom a year later.
Oh my gosh! And then a 4-bedroom penthouse,
$2.9 million.
$2.9 million. Oh gosh!
Wow.
Anyway, it talks about the amenities, and we get to the more important stuff. An inspection last year showed the signs the building was sinking
2 millimeters a year between 1993 and 1999.
And now, okay, this Shimon Wodwinski, a professor at University of Florida, was actually on NPR as I came in this morning, and he talked. We'll look into this further. I think the next story is about that. Is the sinking one of the big deals? Yeah, it could have been. If one part of the building moves with respect to the other, and of course we're talking about rigid material,
yep,
concrete.
Yep.
You could have tension and some cracks. It has been undergoing,
engineering
inspection?
inspections in preparation for its certification after 40 years.
And then what they're saying at the time of the collapse, the building was actually undergoing work on the concrete roof. Now, see, that's worrisome.
Yeah, that's very worrisome.
Straightening of the building regarding updates. Okay. Hurricane, updates. An engineer inspected the building, determined it needed repairs, but the repair was only the replacement of the roof. It was not like structural. But so much will come out about this. Let's just take a look quickly at the second story where I have sinking. We could easily, as most people are doing on all the cable news channels, talk about this, for hour after hour. And as you said, part of what's frustrating is you don't have any real. The data is not in yet.
No.
Now this is interesting. It says, was the Surfside condo, had the building been sinking into the sand? And I remember back at Vacation Bible School, there was a song about don't build your house on the sinking sand.
No, not a good idea.
And, just to further bolster that thing, we set up a little pool. We had the grandkids coming in, and we got like one of those, round circular 12-inch pool. And, of course, being a geometry teacher, I had to, it said, try to get a perfectly level surface. And if you put it on the side of a hill, that's not good. But one of the big things they talked about, because what you want to do if you're making a real nice flat surface and you dig a dirt area 12 feet, it's a lot of work, and you try to get it level. But what you really are going to have to end up doing is put a lot of like bags of play sand
Sure.
So, but one of the things I thought this was really interesting, and it'll harken back to another quick anecdote I'll throw at you. They said what's really important, though, is you can't count on the sand to support it in any way, because just the slightest amount of rain or water flowing through it will basically, it'll move, it'll be gone.
And flow.
And I recall back in high school, I helped somebody do a science project because Reader's Digest had explained why quicksand worked.
Oh, cool.
And it was real simple because it was a very easy thing to do. If you have sand that's in water, it's very stable. I mean, it's hard to get it to move. But if there's any flow upward, like say from a spring or something, it actually flows around and creates a nice little layer of water
between the grains of sand.
Right.
Yes.
And so the problem is, like if you're watching a Tarzan movie and they come walking in and it could be real firm, and you go to where there's a spring, it'll look perfectly normal, but it'll be the type of dynamic situation where the flow of water allows you just to slip right down. I mean, quicksand is a very apropos thing. So anyway, first of all, let us point out, Robert, that you've been to a beach before.
I have.
And you even have anecdotally looked at some of these issues. This thing is right on the Surfside.
Right on the beach.
And that's why they call it Surfside. And
imagine that.
The question, well, this isn't even a question because it says that according to researchers, and this is Dr. Wodwinski, Shimon Wodwinski, he is the professor at the Department of Earth and Environment at, I guess, Florida International University, whether it's just Florida, it looks like it's FIU, but they probably just put the I in there because they didn't want something that was just FU. That wouldn't attract students.
No, probably not.
But I actually heard him speaking on NPR this morning, and he says that the Champlain Towers South condominium in Surfside was sinking into the area it was built at the rate of 2 millimeters a year back in the 1990s.
Yep.
So we may be looking at, well, Robert, I mean, even if we're looking at, that doesn't seem like a lot. But if that rate continued, 40 years at 2 millimeters a year, we're adding up to some actual deflection. And what may be more important is whether it was, it was sinking on one corner and flexing the building.
Sure.
This article, he said, I looked at it this morning and said, oh my God, we did detect the sinking.
It's 11:30.
Thank you, Zarvox.
And anyway, his study focused on flooding hazards in the Miami Beach area, not any concerns with the structural integrity of the buildings. They're looking at, again, these are all the things that are going to impinge. We're not even going to get real controversial about the rising sea level, but they study natural hazards, sea level rise, and this is really cool, space geodesy, which means the branch of mathematics that deals with the fact that the Earth itself changes shape. Sometimes it has to do with things like, ice melts and then the Earth changes shape.
People are here to pick up the same prescription.
I don't know what just happened there.
I don't know. So anyway, this is going to be more and more stuff coming out about this. And this doesn't even include issues like, the very fact that everything is built the same way with concrete and rebar.
Right.
Which we think about it in our neck of the woods, like when bridge constructions and things like that, we have massive changes in temperature. And you have two materials. The idea of a composite material
do not behave the same when they expand and contract.
Well, the crazy thing about composites that we found wonderful and then is somewhat missed, we spent a lot of time with, we actually had a student do a science project on using carbon fiber, or in this case, it was actually carbon nanofibers.
Geez, when was that?
Well, I actually just saw her recently. She's married and has kids, but she was only in junior high school at the time.
Right.
Anyway, the idea that we were proposing, because we were looking at great ways to use coal from West Virginia in ways other than burning it, was that carbon fiber could be used as reinforcement.
Exactly.
And it actually is used now in some places. Because fiberglass reinforced concrete is pretty good. Carbon fiber is better. Even if you had like steel wool that wouldn't be so bad. But the problem with using steel, whether it's in big, thick rebars or even if you have smaller particles of it to distribute the stress and all that, first of all, it doesn't interact well chemically with a lot of things. And one of those things would be salt.
Right.
But the big issue that I see with this area, Florida, has some real hot weather.
Yep.
It has some cool weather. It has, of course, like salt water and all that stuff too. But the main thing that I think, before we move on to the next story, I just want to point out that the whole idea of concrete and rebar, which is based on the idea that composite materials are wonderful. You want something that flexes and has tensile strength in conjunction with something that has compressive strength. And you go, oh, wow, concrete and steel, that's just perfect. But the one fault in that system that you and I have discussed, and I think people need to look at, is you have dissimilar materials.
Yes.
If you just think of a bridge anywhere we're in the, like 40th latitude, kind of mid-range here. Things get cold. Things can get really cold. We can have 20 below zero, and we can have, like we're going to have this weekend, 80 or 90 degrees. That if you took a class that had the coefficient of linear expansion, that
thermal expansion.
Yeah, thermal expansion happens in all kinds of ways, but materials don't expand the same.
No.
And
they do not.
I remember my mom trying to open a jar of pickles or something like that. And I said, Mom, run some hot water on it, because the heat will cause the metal to expand much more than the glass. And so of course that works. That's like simple science. Two different materials expanding differently. That's great if you're taking a lid off a pickle jar, but if you have a structural material and it constantly expands and contracts at different rates, that means that all of that rebar is separating itself from the cement internally. So anyway, there's going to be an awful lot to look at. This is a terribly sad story. And, like most things, I think it's really important to get to the basic issues and see where you can apply them across the board. Because let's face it, they're building, I'm thinking of Dubai, where they built giant artificial islands and putting structures on them, things like that. Is it an issue of water flowing through the sand? Is it an issue of heavy materials sitting on top of something else? Everybody who's walked at the beach knows that if you're walking on the beach, it can feel really hard. And then when the water flows in, the hydrostatic flow through the, around the grains, you'll start to sink into it,
Right.
So I don't know, this whole thing about building everything on the beach, one of the things that Dr. Wadwinski talked about this morning was every place near an ocean where construction is going on is going to have to not stop in its tracks, but it's going to have to analyze what we learn from this, if hopefully we do learn something, and apply it to ongoing construction, because they're talking about somebody said, well, is this a one-off? Is this building different from the other buildings in the area? And they go, no, this is the kind of structure that is up and down the beaches of Florida and the Gulf Coast everywhere. So, wow, scary stuff. And as Robert pointed out, if you're turning on your TV today, no matter what time you turn it on, it'll be more about this, because it's such a human story.
Yes, it is.
It's such a science story, and of course the other questions that are coming into play are, okay, what about inspection? Robert was talking about being in Benin during his days as a worker with the Peace Corps.
The Peace Corps. Yep.
And just anecdotally, I know you were pointing out that you saw people loading sand from the beach to do concrete work.
I certainly did,
no,
not a good thing, because there
are issues.
There are reasons why you do not use sand off of the beach.
Yeah, and I'm sure that they understand that in Florida. But the question would be, how well can you wash the sand, the salty components from the sand in order for it to be? Then the other thing too is, even if you washed all that sand that you got from the beach, the type of sand that you really want are like you want it to be sharp, and you don't want it to be smooth in any way.
Don't
want that.
The last kind of sand grains that you want are the little smooth round ones.
Yeah, because all that slips away. And then the other thing, just an anecdotal story from Robert's travels with his good friend Ted Bratstrom, if Ted is listening. You could sit outside a hotel and watch people building an adjacent hotel.
Yes.
And you could easily count the bags of sand versus the bags of cement and understand that maybe the proper ratio was not
quite the right ratio. Yes. So things do go awry.
Too many questions for us to answer here.
Way too many so far.
Wow, we're covering so far fewer stories than I thought we would. Let's take a quick look at the COVID
variants. All right.
Because I am just a little concerned. I'm watching the news. This is actually the reason why I was almost going to use this as the chart, Robert, because we do want to have charts. And as I told you, when I find good charts, first of all, there's a little thing that has these pretty little pictures, right?
Uh-huh.
These are different coronaviruses, right?
There's a red one and yellow one, a baby blue.
Very attractive.
Light green and then a deep blue. They're beautiful.
But now I want you to scroll down, and I'm thinking, first of all, there may be a couple videos.
Yes, this is what causes a virus to change.
Okay, so now they have
the one you're talking about.
Yeah, they have the different. Look, they have CGU, and then and then it goes to CUA. Go ahead and play that one, and let's see what we have here, because there are a couple of them I want to look at here. If this is the one that shows two different. Most viral mutations have no impact, but depending on where the changes are located, the genetic material, this is what causes a virus to change.
Okay, I'm playing it, but no sound seems to be coming out of it. So what I can do, I can read says, okay, what causes a virus to change?
And then they show a bike
Inside
lock.
a virus, there are molecules called nucleotides, which form different combinations. Imagine a bike lock, but each wheel has 4 options, A, C, G, and U. Yeah. Now imagine the lock has 30,000 wheels. Wow. That's the entire genome sequence of the virus. That's
an impressive thought.
Each time the virus spreads, it copies the sequence. Okay.
But sometimes they can slip.
But every now and then, as it copies, wheels in the sequence can slip.
Yeah.
Yep. This is awesome. Most of the time, these tiny variations don't alter how the virus works.
And sometimes
the variations make combinations that don't work. This makes the virus a little bit weaker. And these strains tend to die out.
Well, I like that.
And sometimes the variants can make the virus a tiny bit stronger, better at transmitting, or more resistant to the immune system. These strains can thrive.
Wow. I'll tell you what. So this makes perfect sense to me. First of all,
The good news is the current COVID-19 vaccines are designed so that in most cases they will work against the new variants just a few seconds more.
That's good, yeah.
And researchers are working on ways to alter the composition of vaccines to cover possible new variations.
And that's one of the reasons why they
That
actually...
was a nice little short video.
Now, I'm going to say the World Health Organization has done better. If you scroll down, there's another thing about stopping the variants. And it explains, get the vaccine, wash your hands, keep a distance, wear a mask, because we're going to have some trouble from the variants. I actually heard,
think
Robert,
we are.
that the population of a wonderfully civilized, depending on which part, if you're in the bar or out of the bar, Australia is something like less than 4% vaccinated.
Yeah.
I heard that.
I keep hearing things like that too, and yet we Americans have just decided to give up.
Oh, I'm not giving up.
I don't understand. I am flabbergasted.
Now, I'm going to say that if you scroll down, you'll see it says to stop stronger COVID variants. There's this little thing with all kinds of little colorful confetti things. Now here's what's cool. We have Area 1 and we have Area 2.
Okay.
One area, I think, is vaccinated people. But anyway, go ahead and run your little video.
I'm going to do
what
that. Let's see if I get some sound this time. I'm getting no sound.
Yeah, I think it's because they must have these in different... To stop stronger variants, we need to work globally.
Globally. There's a thought.
Oh, look at this, people working. There's a big... Okay. So
in some parts of the world, eliminate the virus while it spreads widely to other areas.
So Area 1,
run the
Area
risk
2.
of stronger strains evolving.
So we have Area 1 where they've eliminated it, right?
And then
Area 2 where they
Area
didn't.
2 where it didn't, and then it goes back to Area 1 with the
How eloquent.
we're only safe when everyone is safe. Oh, so does that mean that we have to give a vaccine to other people
If we're smart vaccine... Now,
that aren't Americans?
I'm going to say that this little 45-second video...
That's brilliantly done.
Well, the thing that's brilliant about the video is they show Area 1 where people have lots of vaccines,
Right.
and Area 2 where they don't.
Gee, I wonder what that means.
Well,
Okay.
and so what they show is Area 1 is so pleased with itself because it's eliminated everything, right? But it doesn't take care of Area 2. And so when the variants emerge, are they stronger or weaker?
They're usually stronger.
And the ones that are going to... And so...
The ones that are going to continue are going to be stronger.
So when they come back across into Area 1 where
Wait. What do you mean come back across? They can't get over the wall.
Oh, yeah, they can. They can come on an airplane.
They come on an airplane.
Yeah, so-
Yes.
Okay, well, this is actually pretty well done. So,
This is very well done.
World Health Organization, I'm
Nicely done,
applauding
folks.
your accurate... And
Nice cartooning.
I'm sure that what they're doing is having that great visual that anybody cannot explain. You can really get it when you look at your little bicycle lock.
I like
I
that.
have a bicycle lock that has 4 numbers, so you can spell out words. And in fact, the lock on my thing says Lucy in case anybody wants to steal it. Right, I just set it to Lucy and open it. Okay. Seeing that and then having them say, well, the bicycle lock that we're dealing with has 30,000 variations.
Combinations.
That's a little scary. You'll never get my bicycle if that's the lock. All right, let's take a look. Let's go to the UAP report, Robert.
Oopa. Up.
And apparently this is everything you need to know, Robert, about they actually released it. Literally, I'm saying when I was looking for it last night to see where it was, because
Everything you
it
need
had
to
to
know.
be released by law sometime in June here.
It says, for those who feel abducted by the recent UFO hype, this
one's-
one's for you. Oh, that's kind of interesting.
That's very nice. Now, great image.
When will this Pentagon UFO report come out? No later than Friday, June 25th.
Well,
You know what?
yeah.
Today is the 26th.
Yeah, so this
So
came,
obviously it came out yesterday.
yeah. But,
UAP, why not say UFO? They're basically the same thing. UAP stands for Unidentified Aerial Phenomena, which is a new fancy way of saying unidentified flying objects.
Right.
Naming a Pentagon program after UFOs would be far too silly for a big, very serious government intelligence program. The more seriously put objects in the name could be too limiting of a word for a program that deals
That's
with
true.
the unknown. Okay,
'Cause
I
I
can see
can
that a little
agree
bit.
with that,
Can
yeah.
we really consider them objects if we're only seeing strange shapes
Oh, yeah,
through
or-
fuzzy camera footage from military aircraft?
Or a big-
phenomena.
Or a big laser with a giant
Right.
cat in space.
Cat in space would be a bit more accurate. It's defined as a fact or situation that is observed to
Discernible,
exist
yeah.
or happen, especially one whose cause or explanation is in question. Okay, I can
I
understand that
get
because
it.
it might not be an object. It might be a phenomenon.
Well, wow, yeah.
Yeah.
I get that because we talked last week. We spoke extensively about our theories of the gamma knife
Yes.
projector and all, which we will not get into today. Now,
It's
before we
11:45.
wow, before we
Thank
get
you.
any further, Robert, if you scroll up, I noticed it says the 9-page report is now available. I'm
Oh.
clicking that link.
I wonder how long that's going to be up for.
Oh, here it is, and it's from they have it from it says The Verge, the Pentagon's report to Congress. Here it is.
Okay. You should print that out because I don't know if it's going to be around forever.
Well, it's-
He's going to will want it back.
Yeah, but it says here's the unclassified version. So I'm immediately thinking, why
Two-
do? Yeah.
2.3 pages long.
It's really a nine. It says this is the public's first glance at the 9-page report.
So, okay. So is it filled with like blackouts
I
or
don't know. Okay,
anything?
If you scroll down, it says you can read the full report here or below. When I look below, there's a blank page. Wait a minute, what? Wait a minute. I'm going to click here. So I want to go to here.
Okay,
Actually, I
go
want to go
here.
to there because I skipped to Oh, here it is. Preliminary assessment. Oh, it's a PAUAP. PAUAP intelligence assessment. Oh, look at this, man. It's got date June 25th, preliminary assessment, unidentified area. So this is only the preliminary assessment.
So when do
Oh,
we
you
get
can-
the real assessment?
You can download the report. Well,
Okay.
I'm going to just do this later. I'm just going to say that mostly what they've said is, I don't know.
I don't know.
You know,
That's not a very
It's too hard.
satisfying
We don't know.
a result.
Yeah. Well,
I need numbers. I need pictures. I need more.
yeah, give me more, give me more. Anyway, it is weird that there was so much
Hype.
Well, I'll tell you what, a lot of smoke and anyway, I'm going to hope for more.
Somebody's smoking. That's
Let's
for
move forward to
a lot of smoke.
Actually, I put this one next to the UAP report because obviously a lot of
Dragon
people,
Man.
when I saw Dragon Man, I thought this was part of the report. Because you know how many people have, I think even isn't it the QAnon people talking about the reptilians? that were,
Okay, I did see this, but I didn't see it called Dragon Man.
Well, and I actually got this one. I saw this is in almost every science, the groups that like crunch out the news stories that come out. This was on all kinds of things. It's on Science News and Science Daily and on this one I picked because it had one of the most interesting things is the fact that this particular close relative of Homo sapiens actually, as they say, may oust Neanderthals as our closest ancient relative. It actually has something else unusual about it. It has a big skull.
a very big skull.
So, okay, this is from China.
Which implies a large brain.
So I'll let you read. You have the picture there? Which
Yeah,
says,
I do. It says a skull from northeastern China, nicknamed Dragon Man, far right, comes from a new Homo species that contributed to human evolution at least 146,000 years ago. Scientists say other Chinese Homo skulls from around that time or earlier, including Peking Man, far left, appear next to Dragon Man.
Okay, so Peking Man far left, and then now the only thing I'd like to know is it just because they found it in China that they're going to call it Dragon
I
Man?
don't know. I certainly
They've
hope not.
nicknamed it.
Yeah, it's a nickname.
Anyway, the point is it's previously unrecognized Stone Age species that apparently, according to this, replaces Neanderthals as the closest known relative of people today, Homo sapiens.
That's really interesting.
Okay, it says they represents a species dubbed Homo longi.
Oh, wait. It says the Arbrum cranium presents a combination of features setting it apart from other Homo species. The name H. longa derives from a Chinese term for the province where it was found, which translates as Dragon River.
Oh, okay.
The term inspired the nickname Dragon Man.
Oh,
Okay,
please.
that's what's going on.
Yeah.
Named after a river.
Well, there you go.
Crimea River. Okay, gotcha.
And then they have a picture down below of a guy with a nice 6-pack abs, and looks like he's got a cell phone that's shaped like an arrowhead. No, this is a great artist reconstruction.
Yep.
Shows an adult male based on a nearly complete fossil skull, which belonged to the newly proposed Homo species that lived about 146,000 years ago. The thing is, that's relatively
That's pretty soon.
That's close,
In
and
the overall
they
scheme of things.
yeah. So it's a very apparently they're portraying it as a very robust. Once they get more of the hopefully more of this will be coming along. Very fascinating. This is another huge change of it mentions at the bottom they're talking about we've talked about the Neanderthals and the Denisovans, and it says the Harbin skull most closely resembles several other Middle Pleistocene fossils from Chinese sites, and they're now saying that this may have been, some of those are considered maybe to be as Denisovan. So, we're looking at an intermixing here and some progression, but it's just really fascinating.
Yeah, very cool.
Oh, and then down below it mentions another story I almost put up. It says the Harbin skull and the newly described Israeli fossils, which are known as the Nesher Ramla, display anatomical variations on a Middle Pleistocene Homo theme. So it's fascinating to think that we may have had. We talked forever about Homo sapiens and Neanderthals existed at the same time, and we're looking at the possibility that
There were
we're going to
all
have to talk about
kinds
multiple
of these.
multiple hominids at that time.
Wow.
Wow, this is really
That's
fascinating.
really
stuff.
cool.
I'm looking at it. Oh, we're doing pretty good with our time.
Exoplanets?
Exoplanets.
Let's do it.
This is fascinating because I just happened to when you're talking about how the same news was going on over and over again.
Yeah.
I ended up turning to BBC, and it was about sharks. What a surprise.
Because we're almost in Shark Week.
Well, but the thing it was really well done, and one of the things they were pointing out was the sharks that were off South Africa hunting for seals, and the fact that these great white sharks and other sharks that are maybe even more adept at hunting the seals were basically in the murky water, and they were down on the bottom, and they were looking up at something that's being against the bright. So they were just looking for silhouettes.
Right.
And as they had done multiple, really scary footage with some, remote cameras and things of sharks taking seals off South Africa. And you wouldn't want to be surfing. I'm just
No,
telling
you would not want to be surfing
because
there.
they went through the whole physiology of the shark and how it has a large liver and it stores up glycogen and it can have such a burst of speed. But the whole point of it is it sits in the murky water, and when it decides the silhouette is a lounging seal on the surface,
It soars.
it like rockets out
Yeah.
of the bottom, and it's ready to grasp it in its jaws, and then it usually goes like 5 or 10 feet out of the water. Really, but the thing that the guy said was, as the shark was coming up, "I see you. Do you see me?" And I thought that was a fascinating thing. When I saw this story, the part that was interesting is that we're talking about exoplanets. We're looking for those exoplanets.
Right.
And we find them, Robert. We're so excited when we find all these. Somebody said, okay, so I see you, do you see me? The scientists at Cornell decided, well, wait a minute, let's look around at other star systems.
So it says here, scientists have identified 2,034 nearby star systems within a small cosmic distance of 326 light years that could find Earth merely by watching our pale blue dot cross the sun.
Don't call me a pale blue.
Hey,
Wow.
With the same way that we're
That's it,
that
exactly.
we're detecting exoplanets, you've got to be in the same plane as the planets are that are going around its star. Yeah. So if you find the plane that the Earth is in as it goes around our star, and then look out into space, there are going to be stars that, if they have planets, can then see us.
That's, and
That makes
it's such a
perfect sense.
cool analysis that they
Sure.
did. Like, as you said, they basically took that plane and extended it. Mm-hmm. There could be a lot more things.
And say, so which of the nearby stars that have exoplanets could possibly see the Earth cross the sun?
Yeah.
Yes.
I love this. I love this one sentence toward the end. From the exoplanet's point of view, we are the aliens.
That's right.
Oh my aliens.
We are the aliens.
Yeah, well, and you know what? I was just thinking we had Stephen Hawking at the other end of this story. Stephen got to the point where he started saying, "Hey, we're sending out stuff like here we are."
And maybe that's not a good idea.
Yeah, it's not a good idea because, like, for example, if you're a small shrimp on the bottom of the ocean and you keep thinking, "Here I am,
Here I am.
Anybody that wants to devour
Eat shrimp.
eat shrimp. Oh man. So anyway, this is a cool story, a different perspective, and
Yes.
in the correct use of that word, because a different perspective on what we're looking at. From where we are, we're looking for exoplanets.
Right.
From
Where
multiple-
they are, they're also looking for exoplanets.
and multiple star systems. That's a lot of star systems. But when you realize that, as you said, Robert, it's only the ones that are on the plane that would be able to see us pass
Exactly.
in front of the sun.
Only in that plane.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Now, last week we talked about LIGO. Now we need to delve into this just a little
Quantum
bit.
a little bit.
We got into the fact that they were talking about physicists. This is it started from a different point of view. It said physicists are bringing human-scale objects to a near standstill,
Yeah.
reaching a quantum state. Now, at this point, I didn't realize they were still talking about the mirrors and all that. But the thing that's that's fascinating about this is they're pointing out that people have been trying to create a near quantum state with when they talk about super cool objects, originally they're just talking about, atoms or a group of atoms.
Right.
And it says wrestling small objects such as clouds of millions of atoms or nanogram objects into that quantum state is, it's a little more doable. I mean, the point is you're cooling things.
Right.
It says now scientists have cooled a large human scale object. And
Close to its emotional ground state. The object
Yeah.
isn't tangible in the sense of being situated at one location, but is the combined motion of 4 separate objects. The object that the researchers cool has an estimated mass of about 10 kilograms and comprises nearly 1 octillion atoms.
Well, okay, now the thing, again, when they're talking about an object, so at this point I still hadn't realized we're talking about the LIGO mirrors. And when they're talking about it being 10 kilograms, okay, so I'm thinking, all right, well, so we have an object and it's cool and it's at 10. And for some reason they're showing a photo concept of a baseball catch. I don't know, that looks more like a softball, buddy, I'm just telling you.
Yeah.
Yes. So scrolling down, these are the folks at MIT, and they used, it gets down. The object is intangible in the sense, it just jumped. But the point is they have four separate objects, which are the mirrors in this LIGO thing, and they're really being cooled down to near the when we'll get down to the bottom, it actually talks about the numbers. But the part that's weird is they each, of course, they say they each weigh 40 kilograms.
I know, they each mass.
Now and so we're talking about the idea of the mass, but it has an estimated mass of 10 kilograms after they've reached this thing. But here's the part I thought it was cool to update. It says the researchers took advantage of the ability of the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO. I went, to measure the motion of the masses with extreme precision and super cool the collective motion to 77 nanokelvins.
Nanokelvins.
That's the first time I saw that.
That's really cool. Just shy of the object's predicted ground state of 10 nanokelvins.
Yeah, so the part that's just so, reading this is still something I'm grasping. It's a little bit like when people would come in and say, how do you feel about that string theory, because the thing that is really impressive, though, is that to date, this is the largest object to be cooled close to its motional ground state.
See, that's just amazing that you can get it that cold.
Well, and it's like, where do you get that many ice cubes?
the
I'll
say.
Well, and the thing is, they're not just using them; they're using lasers and some really interesting stuff to get the cooling. But anyway, this is really a cool story.
It's just amazing.
In multiple ways, and they're talking about applied feedback cooling through various means, including laser light, to bring individual atoms to their quantum ground states. So the other thing that's nice is that we're talking about this thing that was designed to measure gravitational waves is now being looked at. It says the Gravitational Wave Detecting Observatory comprises twin interferometers in separate U.S. locations. Wow, this is getting complex, Robert. This is way beyond that solar light I bought down at Lowe's today. Well, we just didn't get as far as I'd like to, and we didn't even get to my favorite one, which was Muco rice.
I was thinking it would be Polosaurus.
Delicious. Well, we'll cover this next week because this
Sure.
is another wonderful, interesting little. I mean, we obviously need to be. We saw the little thing from the World Health Organization
Yes.
about the variants, and we heard about the Australians down there just drinking Fosters on the beach with, I don't know, less than 4% of the population vaccinated. So we need to be looking at some pretty important stuff. And we will be looking at it. We'd love for you to join us next week for Radio Science News. We're here 11 till 12, streaming from this particular website, radiosciencenews.org. And on that website, you can find out how you might listen to that show later on Wheeling Community Radio and on our favorite bunch up in Connecticut, the NPR station, Robin
It's
Hood
12
Radio.
o'clock.